So babies are amazing at learning language. And something to think about is, well, wait a minute, what exactly do you know when you know a language? And the answer, honestly, we can quantify it actually by one recent estimate, about 12.5 million bits of information, if you want a number. And perhaps more interestingly are the types of things that you know. You know a lot, actually. So here's an example. You know how to identify words influence speech, something called speech segmentation. So the actual signal you hear from a spoken language is this acoustic signal, which we can represent in these various ways. We can sort of symbolically represent it as a stream of sounds. This is actually in the International Phonetic Alphabet rendition of the sounds that are encoded in this acoustic wave. We can divide that up into things that we recognize as words, such that this signal is turned into or understood by us as "what a pretty kitty," right? So turning that fluent stream of speech into separable units, segmenting that speech. That's something that we know how to do. We also know how to pronounce words, which is phonology, the sound system. So for example, this really cute guy right here, he's a kitty with that emphasis on the first syllable, not a kitty with the emphasis on the wrong syllable, right? So that's part of what you know. You know how to pronounce the words of your language because of your phonology knowledge. You know that certain words behave like other words, right? So if I have this beginning of an utterance, "what a pretty blank," there are certain types of words that can fit in that blank. We actually, things like penguin, "what a pretty penguin," "what a pretty kitty," "what a pretty owl." These things are all the same type of word. We might call it a noun. They're the same category. In fact, a syntactic category is when we're talking about the categories that we can use to put words and phrases together. So you know that certain words behave similarly. That's syntactic categorization. You know how to interpret words in context, right? Using your knowledge of syntax, which is about language structure, and semantics, which is about language meaning. So for example, "oh, look, a pretty kitty." And you're looking at this guy, he's quite pretty, right? "Look, there's another one." Another what? Well, maybe it's another pretty kitty. It's possible. Or maybe it's just another kitty, maybe not so pretty, but it's certainly not another wombat, right? So you know how to interpret one. There are restrictions on how you interpret it. And that's, again, based on your knowledge of language structure and language meaning. You know how to put words together to ask questions, again, using syntax, your knowledge of language structure. So pretend that we have this kitty here and he was bought as a present for somebody, right? And Lily, well, she thinks that this kitty is very pretty, okay? So here's something that you can't ask. Who does Lily think the kitty for is pretty? I mean, who does Lily think the kitty for is pretty? You know what you're trying to ask about. You're like, who is this person that the kitty is for? And Lily thinks this kitty is pretty. You know, you get the thoughts that you want to put together, but you cannot put them together this way. And that has to do with your knowledge of syntax, of language structure. You also know how to identify the right interpretation in context using your knowledge of pragmatics, meaning in context, right? So consider these kitties. So our favorite kitty over here, some kitties on stairs, a little kitty in a glass, very cute. And I say to you, given this scenario, hey, guess what? Every kitty didn't sit on the stairs. How do you interpret that? Well, you're looking around, you're like, well, here's our collection of kitties, and it turns out actually that structurally, there are two possible interpretations for every kitty didn't sit on the stairs. One of them is that no kitties sat on the stairs. Like for every kitty, that kitty did not sit on the stairs, right? And the other one is not all the kitties sat on the stairs, right? And you actually, as an adult, typically have a preference given this scenario for this one. And why? Well, that has to do with your knowledge of interpretation and context, the context of the way people tend to talk about things. This one actually happens to be true given this scenario. So it's true that not all the kitties sat on stairs. These kitties did, those kitties did not. But this interpretation is false. No kitties sat on the stairs, right? Because these guys, well, they're sitting on the stairs, so this is a false statement. So you have a bias, because you're for pragmatics, to interpret it this way, to make it true, the thing that is expressed in this utterance, right? So that's your knowledge of pragmatics. And these are just the types of things that you know when you know a language, right? And so it's just a smattering of them. You know a lot more, but it's just to give you the flavor of the sorts of things you know when you know a language.